Hey solos! So you are interested in the Flower and Garden Festival that is currently happening at EPCOT right now, but you don't know what it's going to be like, especially for solo, and maybe you don't even have a trip booked there yet. How can you bring some flower and garden energy into your daily life and plan an EPCOT trip to see the Flower and Garden Festival when you're going solo? Well, solo spoiler, the Flower and Garden Festival is so fantastic. It is really easy to incorporate some of the ideas into your daily life or even just prepare for your trip. And in this episode, I'm going to talk all about it. Hi, everyone. It's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do. And welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. In this episode, I'm going to talk all about the Flower and Garden Festival. I'm going to talk about what's happening at the festival right now, some things that you should keep an eye out, some things that you should try, and also how you can bring some of the Flower and Garden Festival energy into your daily life this spring, especially if you can't go yourself. So you might have like a little secret spot in your life where you're doing some Disney solo magic that's related to the Epcot Festival, even if you're not going to go. So we're going to talk about all of that today. And it was really fun to come up with like a similar episode for the Festival of the Arts, like ways you can bring the Festival of the Arts into your daily life. And so this episode is going to do Flower and Garden Festival, both in the actual park in Epcot, but also at home too. And it was really fun to like come up with stuff. So here we go. All right. So you can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook, and you can follow me on Threads. You can also listen to this on Apple, on Spotify, and on YouTube. Please make sure you subscribe and rate and review. Thank you so much for boosting the YouTube subscribers up from like, I don't even remember what it was. It was like, I don't know, it was low. It's still very low, but it was low. And I was like, can we just like get it like 5 people higher? And I think it's like 10, 15 people higher. So thank you. Thanks so much for that. It just makes it a little less sad. It makes it a little less sad. And I know I should do so much more on YouTube, like give it better thumbnails and all that stuff. But like, oh God, so much work. However, speaking of work and like fun work, I also started a Patreon. Now I can tell that the Patreon isn't like something that you all have like naturally gravitated towards. And it is always sad to throw a party that nobody wants to come to, but it's okay. I have faith. I'm going to keep posting. I'm going to keep doing the Patreon thing, and hopefully you will join me there. And what you're going to find on the Patreon is behind the scenes stuff, abilities to vote. Hopefully if we're getting a whole bunch of people, you also will get an opportunity to chat with other people. You will also get videos, especially of the solo stories and any other like, kind of more like informal videos that I don't want to put on the Instagram grid. And also I've learned that some of you aren't actually even on social media. So it's an opportunity to be able to kind of see some of the photos and stuff like that. In fact, this episode, I'm going to highlight a few things that's going to go on the Patreon account. So again, I hope you'll join me there. I have faith that it's going to be something that's going to be really good for all of us. So I'm excited to put my energy there, and hopefully you'll join me. All right. I'm excited for Flower and Garden. I love this festival. Let's get right on into it. Now, I definitely think that the Flower and Garden Festival is my favorite festival. I remember watching videos like during the pandemic from Molly, who's now with Mammoth Club, when she was doing the stuff for All Ears. And she would say that the Flower and Garden Festival is her favorite festival. And I was like, I don't know. That seems like a pretty like old fuddy-duddy type of festival for it to be one's favorite. But I kind of agree with her because of the way that the festival kind of manifests around Epcot. You definitely feel more like you are in something new and different than the other festivals at Epcot. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's take a step back. So Epcot festivals, there are 4 Epcot festivals that happen throughout the year. And for the last 2 years, you haven't been able to, okay, sorry, that's confusing. There are 4 Epcot festivals that happen throughout the year. Festival of the Arts that happen in January, February, the Flower and Garden Festival that happens in the spring, the Food and Wine Festival that happens through the fall, and then the International Festival of the Arts that only happens in December. after the pandemic till about 2 years ago, there's my 2-year link, they had all the festivals just kind of blanketing pretty much every single month of the year. And I've always said that the Food and Wine Festival just doesn't make sense in the hot months. It's fall foods, fall flavors, like a fall sensibility. So to have it in July and August doesn't really make sense. The Flower and Garden Festival, it's kind of the same thing. To have the Flower and Garden Festival all the way through July and August, it just doesn't really make sense. And so even though they have tried to stretch the Flower and Garden Festival through July and August, and June, July, and August, and then stretch the Food and Wine Festival through those months as well, right? I'm very happy to say that it is not the case anymore. Last year and this year, they have shortened the Flower and Garden Festival, and then they pushed the Food and Wine Festival back to the beginning of fall. And I think that just makes a lot more sense. So it would be very rare for you to go to EPCOT where there isn't a food festival going on, except in the case of the summer, except in the case of June, July, and August. And I think that's actually a really good idea. When I was at Disney the last time, just a couple weeks ago, even though it was only March, it was only April, it still was very hot during the day to eat a lot of the food and kind of walk around. It's so much nicer during the kind of evening hours. So I think it's actually really great that they don't have a food festival during June, July, and August right now. But that means that if you want to go to the Flower and Garden Festival, you only have now, whenever you're listening to this, until June 2nd. And then June 2nd, Flower and Garden Festival goes away. And then sometime in August, the Food and Wine Festival will come up. So if you are interested in seeing the Flower and Garden Festival, you have until June. However, I know not all of you are able to just quickly get to EPCOT from now until June the 2nd. So as I said in the introduction, this episode is also going to be how you can bring some Flower and Garden Festival spirit into your daily life. Now, I've always said on the podcast that the Food and Wine Festival is the very first food festival. And the festivals like Flower and Garden Festival and the Festival of the Arts, those festivals had to do different things with their food menus to become interesting. But because the Food and Wine Festival, which happens in the fall, is the original festival, I've always kind of been bored by it because it hasn't had to do anything different. So I've always talked about the Food and Wine Festival being the first festival. And it's kind of interesting that nobody has corrected me. Also, thank you. I mean, if it's a big slight, please let me know. But maybe if you knew the difference, you didn't you understood why I made the distinction. The fact is the Flower and Garden Festival has been around longer than the Food and Wine Festival. It has been around for 30 years. This is its 30-year anniversary. But it isn't, when it was created, it wasn't created in the same way that it looks now. It did not have the food booths. It did not have the different little pavilions where you would go around and, experience the different honey or experience plant-based food. No, it wasn't like that at all. When it started in April 1994, there was a focus on exhibits and education and, yes, showcasing the topiaries. So I think that's why the Flower and Garden Festival feels really established, but also very fresh and new because it was always about the gardens. It was always about the gardens. And so the topiaries, they have been working on, I'll talk more about the topiaries in a bit, but the topiaries, they have been working on literally for decades. So it is a very established festival in terms of showcasing the flower and gardens of EPCOT for 30 years, but it is also fairly quote unquote new, I guess, in comparison to the Food and Wine Festival, in that the festival that we see today with the food pavilion, with the Garden Rocks music series, those are all newer to how it is established. Like, for example, you can really trace all of the EPCOT festivals as like food booths, entertainment, merchandise, and like it's very kind of standard. But when these original festivals, like the original Food and Wine Festival that actually started at Downtown Disney, now Disney Springs, and the Flower and Garden Festival, they were a lot more unique to themselves, but also to like what they were providing. So in 1994, when they had their very first festival, it had behind the scenes tours of the different gardens. It had like different speaker series with the different gardeners. It had, like I said, educational series and talks and things like that. And that isn't really part of the festival anymore. Now, I do think that that is sad, but it isn't necessarily something that you noticed is missing. You know, like there are certain things when you're like engaging in a particular activity, you're like, oh, I feel like this is missing. The education part of it is not really missing anymore, but also EPCOT itself has moved on from like an edutainment, education and entertainment venue. So maybe that's why it doesn't feel like it is really missing that education point. Although I do think that would be cool. I do think that like more tours at EPCOT would be pretty cool. Interestingly, in 1995, the second year of the festival, that's when they actually turned the garden that they had in Germany, in the Germany pavilion, into that giant railway set. So that year, they wanted to focus on roses, but they also wanted to showcase this miniature train. And it became so popular that they just have left it there. And so when you see that train set in the Germany pavilion, that is because of the Flower and Garden Festival circa 1995. So there you go. Hashtag the more you know. Duh. All right, let's get into this year's festival. So like I said, it starts from March the 5th and it goes until June the 2nd. It has the flowers and gardens, it has food, it has merchandise, it has music, it has magic shots, it has so many different things. And again, what I really, really love about this particular festival is because of the flowers and gardens. Everywhere you look at EPCOT, the theme of the festival really is highlighted. Like even if you're not there for the festival, you're like, oh, look at these beautiful flowers. Like whenever I go to EPCOT and it's not the Flower and Garden Festival, I always think to myself, oh, what's missing here? It's usually more colorful. And it's because of the flowers. Like they just don't have as many flowers when it's not the Flower and Garden Festival. So one of the things that the EPCOT Flower and Garden Festival is really known for is the giant topiaries, the giant life-size topiaries of a variety of different Disney characters. And every year it seems like they launch a new topiary. But I just want to like flag for you to not be worried if you can't go a particular year, because you will see those topiaries other years. The topiaries are so much work. They take so much work that there's no way it's just going to be like a one and done. So for example, the Groot, like from Guardians of the Galaxy topiary, was new last year and they have it again this year. The Encanto characters were new a couple years ago, and you can find them again this year. So if you're like, that's the thing I really want to just stress generally in this podcast, that it's really easy to get FOMO with a lot of stuff related to Disney because of social media and also because of the way that their marketing works. But by and large, like, don't stress too much. Things can either be like bigger on social media and through marketing than they are in person, or they're things that happen more regularly than the social media and the marketing might suggest. Now, there are been a few things that are like a quick one and done, especially when it comes to merchandise, for sure. But things like, oh my gosh, yeah, I really want to see the new Moana topiaries with Maui and Hei and Pua and Moana, like, because those are the new topiaries this year. don't worry, like they'll probably be there next year if you're not going to be able to see them this year. So that's the thing when you are planning your solo trips, is that there can be this urgency and this, this real like FOMO, this element of that you're going to be missing out on things. And so you're like, oh gosh, I really want to go right now. I'm not quite sure. I really want to see this thing, but the timing would be better if I just waited. Here's the thing, make the choices for you. Make the choice of the timing that best works for you. And if this year is not the best for Flower and Garden, if it's better to start saving now and have an epic Flower and Garden trip in 2026, then use a podcast like this to start planning and start creating that buzz around your own solo trip. Like, don't feel the need to push something in a space that doesn't belong, because again, social media and marketing really makes it seem like things are a flash in the pan. And as I've talked about on this podcast so much, because Disney World is so big, they can't make all of these like minor changes all the time. So things that they do are often expected to be repeat offenders. I don't know why I want to say offenders, repeat things, because of the time and resources and money that they've invested in them. So just a reminder about that, because I know when I started seeing the topiaries from the Flower and Garden Festival on social media, I immediately thought like, oh, it's a one and done. I'll never get to see the Snow White topiary there again. Nah, girl. I speak for myself right now. Nah, girl, it's been there for like 10 years. It's going to be there when you go. So just a reminder about that. But yeah, there's topiaries all over World Showcase as well as other places at EPCOT. They're so cool. You can see Tinkerbell across from the England Pavilion, Winnie the Pooh and Friends. I'm not a big Winnie the Pooh fan, but I really love their topiaries in front of the England Pavilion. You can see Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. You can see Beauty and the Beast, like in the France Pavilion. And sometimes the topiaries are impressive, but also just the staging of the topiaries is really cool. There's a really beautiful Tiana topiary that's in the American Adventures Pavilion. There was a whole article actually about the team that worked on the Tiana topiary, that they really wanted to bring in a lot of Black women power as well as different elements of storytelling that reference a longer tradition in the African American community. And yeah, it's really cool to kind of read about that. If I find that article again, I'll make sure to put a link available. They have a really, really cool Miguel and Dante from Coco topiary that's in the Mexican Pavilion, and those ones are fairly new too. They're really, really colorful. They also have a Figment topiary, of course. That one is fairly new too, because again, I think Disney was even shocked about how like popular he was going to be a couple years ago with those popcorn buckets. And so now you can see the Figment topiary, which is really cool. And then they also have this really cool spot where you can see Mickey and Friends, and those ones always change a little bit. So yeah, the topiaries are just beautiful. And what's really cool is, like, again, even if you're not there to like see the Flower and Garden Festival, or you're just there kind of casually, you are still going to be able to see these beautiful topiaries. And then the other cool thing is that if you're going solo and that you're really into it, you can spend as much time as you want looking at all of these different topiaries and like really kind of like dissecting them with your eyes, with your brain, to be able to kind of see how they put those together. And it would be really cool if there was more education about that, if there were a little speaker series and things like that talked about it. But even so, you can still really spend the time like taking a look at all these different topiaries, and they're a highlight. They're definitely a highlight. There's also a special butterfly garden that's around the Land Pavilion, and that is a domed-in area. It's domed in with net. It's not open at night, though. So if you are planning on going Epcot at night, try to get there before twilight so you can take a look in the butterfly area. The other thing, which is really awesome, is that the tea garden, or the garden that is behind the UK pavilion, is a tea garden, and they have like little setups about the different types of tea and the different plants that go in that tea. And they also have tea garden tours that are run by different cast members. If you are interested in doing one of the tea garden tours, they happen at different times in the afternoon. You need to go and sign up. So as soon as you get there, as soon as you get to Epcot, go sign up for the tour and then come back and they put a little sticker and it's like, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's not a huge part out of your day. And if they're already kind of booked up because you're solo, just go back around the time that the tour started, see if there is a wait list, see if you can kind of not sneak on the tour, like obviously do it legitimately, but because it's only one person and it's right at the beginning of the tour, they might actually have a spot for you. So definitely go check that out. It's worth having the time to do it for sure. So along with the topiaries and the butterfly garden and the tea garden, there's just gardens full of plants everywhere. Just go and spend time looking at all the different countries' pavilions. Like in the Japan pavilion, for example, they have had this display of different contraptions. It's not quite the right word. Different contraptions that farmers and gardeners have made to detract animals from coming and eating plants. And it's this like sophisticated series of systems that are often water-based, and they're just so interesting. And then they also have like little bonsai trees and some information about bonsai. It's just very cool. I know a lot of people love the Canada Pavilion because of all of the flowers they have there, because of like how beautiful the spaces that they have. There's a whole display in the Mexico Pavilion outside that's all orchids, which is just beautiful, and I don't know how they keep them alive. So you can do the Flower and Garden Festival by just walking around and looking at the big topiaries, but you can also do the Flower and Garden Festival by really spending time like looking in the different countries' pavilions and looking at the educational spaces that they have. Like right outside the Moroccan Pavilion, they have a small garden that shows where different spices come from. And, I don't know about you, but there are spices, for example, I've never even considered where they come from. So to be able to see them all together is really quite beautiful. So yeah, it's really awesome to go and explore all these different gardens. There is some education in Communicore Hall. So the new Communicore Hall, if you go in, there is some like little small exhibits about different types of stacking plants and things like that. It's not really the full topiaries. There's a couple things that you're like, well, obviously that's how you did it. There was this one thing that was like, how we made a stacking pyramid of plants. And they're like, we started with a pyramid where we would just be able to put plants in. And it's like, well, I'm so glad that you got that printed on plastic. Like put that up. Anyway, there is some information there, but I'm going to quote blogmickey.com that said that the Communicore Hall was a disappointing return to mediocrity for the Flower and Garden Festival. So there isn't a lot there. It's not like the cool exhibit of costumes that they had for the Festival of the Arts. So that's disappointing. But if you are interested in the history, if you are interested in history and education, there are like spaces that you can find that. One final thing I wanted to highlight with the Flower and Garden Festival is that the Livin' with the Land tour, like the boat tour, for example, they do have some different displays that they've created and put around the Livin' with the Land area that reference different Disney stories and have some really cool like set pieces. I didn't go this year. I went last year, and it was so clear that the cast members who came up with those were so excited to have this creative outlet to tell different stories with plants and spices and flowers and foods related to the different Disney stories. So definitely go check that out. I don't think that there has been any changes to the Behind the Seeds tour, which is the behind the scenes tour for Livin' with the Land, because of Flower and Garden. However, if you do the tour during Flower and Garden and they did have some changes, please let me know and I will update that accordingly. All right, so Flower and Garden Festival, flowers and gardens all over Epcot. That's great. What if you can't actually get to Epcot for the Flower and Garden Festival this year? How can you bring some of that energy, that flower and garden energy into your daily life? Well, it's really funny because when I was preparing this episode, I saw this reel on Instagram that somebody was like walking through the plant department at my local Walmart or whatever, trying to like trying to like get the feels of living with the land because I'm not at Epcot right now. So you can just like go to your local garden center and like look at the different flowers there. But that actually is a serious serious suggestion, because what's really beautiful about the flower and gardens at the Flower and Garden Festival is that they are so beautiful, and in the spring it is really, really wonderful to revel in that beauty of flowers and gardens and the greenness of spring. But also there are educational pieces. And so if you go to your local garden center, even without buying anything, you could ask, I was going to say a cast member. No, you could ask somebody who works there to just like give you some information on some of the different flowers and plants and shrubbery and things like that. So you could learn about something that you could bring into your own house or apartment. Like, for example, in the past, when I moved into this apartment, I have a really beautiful balcony. However, I only get sunlight after like 4 p.m. in the summer. So I didn't want to get flowers that needed sunlight. So I went and I talked to somebody at my local Home Depot, and I learned all about the different flowers that work best in the shade, and that was really cool. So you could go to your local Home Depot or whatever and ask some questions too, and learn about the different flowers and plants and things like that might work for your spaces. But another way that you can bring some of that flower and garden energy into your life this April, May, and June is to buy a plant or even just a bouquet of flowers. Buy something that is beautiful. Buy something that represents spring. Buy something that you're really going to spend time like looking at and like associating with Disney. I know that sounds so weird, for example, but I have this really cool plant. What's it called? It has a lot of different names. It's called like a snake's tongue or a mother's tongue. Yeah, a snake plant. Those plants are indestructible. They are very, very hard to kill. So if you don't have a green thumb, that's actually a really good one to start with. A snake plant. I have a snake plant that I have growing in a Haunted Mansion mug that looks like an urn. And every time I look at it, I just like, it associates me back to Disney, in particular the Haunted Mansion, because it really does look like a flowering urn. I also have some different clippings of plants and things like that in different Disney mugs that I have, an orange bird cup, for example. So again, the idea about Disney Solo Magic in your daily life is to create these moments that just kind of like connects you to this magical part of yourself. And so plants and flowers can be a really beautiful way to do that. And with Flower and Garden Festival right now, doing it really purposefully, intentionally, can be a way to connect you to that festival. So if the Flower and Garden Festival is known for its flowers and their gardens and the plants and all of these different things, bring some of that into your life really explicitly, colorfully, narratively, whimsically into your daily life as a way to connect you with Disney, connect you with that element of Epcot right now. And yeah, I think it'd be a really, really cool way to help kind of herald in spring and herald in a new season by connecting with your Disney Solo Magic. I don't know which one of those different activities I'm going to do yet, but I might do all of them. I might do all of them. I might just like go to the garden center, go for a walk, get a bouquet made. I don't know, get a new plant. I feel like I could do all of them, but I will, when I figure out what I'm going to do, I will update that on Patreon. So you can definitely check that out there. All right, so the other thing that the Flower and Garden Festival is known for, just like all the festivals at Epcot, is food. food and drink related to nature, related to plants, related to florals is a huge, huge part of the Flower and Garden Festival. This year, you can find different foods like grilled peaches and burrata, so like a mozzarella. You can find things like the frushi, like sushi, but with fruit. That's a classic standard in the Japan pavilion. There's a tostada de carne, which is giant at the Mexico pavilion. There's a fruit cereal shake, so like a milkshake that tastes like Fruit Loops. So you can find that as well. A citrus baked brie with orange lemon marmalade. They also have a couple different like impossible meat options, such as the farmhouse meatball with impossible beef, with a lentil bread, spinach, and marinated vegetables. There is a Jamaican jerk chicken, a seafood ceviche. There's chicken and waffles, a seafood bake. There's a trio of dips. Like, there's so many different types of foods there that you can really you can be really, really overwhelmed. Now, okay, this is how I do the food festivals. I will go thinking I'm going to eat everything. I can do this, Samantha. I know you can. I know I can. I'm going to do this. And then I do a couple booths and I get too hot or the lines get too long and I get hangry and I have to like reset. So this is the best way that I do food festivals, but you can do it however you want. But I have really enjoyed, it's a really interesting balance because when I do them with other people, I can try more things because I am like eating half of it rather than all of it. But when I do it by myself, I can just kind of gorging on as many things as I want. So this is the way I do food festivals the best. I'll go when the food festival booths open at 11 a.m. and I will get a few things. Maybe I'll hit up 1 to 3 different booths. By that time, it's usually like 1 p.m. and the sun is getting very, very hot. So I have a couple things that I can do then. I can go back to the hotel and lie down because I usually have a sunburn. I might be speaking about my last trip, or I can do some rides, or, there's a few different things that I can do. However, I will go back in the later evening or around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and I will do a few more booths. But I have found that I enjoy the food festivals more when I have a dining reservation sometime in that period, like between 4 and 7 o'clock, for example. And I think that's because it gives me a full meal. It lines my stomach. And so now rather than go search for food just to be full, I am looking for food that I really just want to enjoy and try. So that has really made a big difference to actually eat a meal before doing the different food booths, because I do find it takes the edge off. There's something about, I do really like the food portions at the festivals, but you do need to eat a few of them to get fully satisfied. And I don't know, maybe just because the size of them, I never think of it as a full meal. So when I have gone and I've eaten at different restaurants and then picked up the food festival, I have found that I've enjoyed it a lot more. One thing that you should know about the food festival is that they have something called the Garden Graze, and that is a recommendation of different foods and drinks around all the different festival booths that is really explicitly related to gardening. And on your little passport, you get a stamp if you order one of those items, and if you order 5 of those items over the course of the whole festival. So if you went to the festival on March the 5th on the very first day and you got 1 stamp, and now you're going to go back June the 2nd on the last day and get 4 more stamps, it still counts. So there you go. Plus, it doesn't actually matter if you get 5 of the same item, but it's nice to be able to try different things. So if you do the 5 Garden Graze stamped items, then you get a free little ice cream and a collectibles cup at the end of your Garden Graze, which is a really nice little souvenir. I actually have a collection of those different souvenir cups. I didn't do it this year, but from past years where I'd keep like little things on my desk. And yeah, I don't know. I really like it as a souvenir. You can do the garden graze if you are vegetarian or vegan. There are different options on there for that. And again, it doesn't matter if you get 5 of the same item. I don't know why you would like go and try some other things, but there are some really cool options there as well. In terms of the prices, you can get things for about $6 to about $12. Now I'm rounding up on both of those, but that's how much things are. If you are on a particular budget, you can get a gift card that is part of a wristlet at one of the gift stores and just load the cash on it that you want and just pay that way. That is something that they promote actually, because a lot of locals come to the different food festivals. They don't have magic bands, for example. So that's a way if you wanted to like keep on budget. You can also use your magic band as well as any other payment. I didn't see anybody use cash this time, but I know in the past I have seen people pay with cash. The other thing that has really been a huge deal maker for my food festival experiences is to bring my very own tray. And this has been so important as a solo. So when you order your food and your drink, it comes on a little plate or a little cup, and then there is a stand where you can get your cutlery and your napkins and things like that. And you only have 2 hands. If you're lucky, right? You might not even have 2 hands. I just thought of The Office UK right now. I don't know if any of you know that reference of what I'm thinking. I'm not going to say the joke because it's offensive, but the character was offensive. Anyway, please let me know if you know what I'm saying. Okay, this has become very weird. So when you're solo, you don't have another person or a stroller or anything else that can help you balance all that food. So I have bought a tray on Temu. That is a small little tray. It goes in a little bag that I also bring with me, and I put all of my food on it, and it is great. And I can get like 3 different plates on there, and every single time I use it, cast members are like, "Oh, where'd you get that?" I bought it from Temu. It was under $5. I bought some stickers to go with it that are orange bird and figment, and I only use it for the food festival. So I would provide a link to that, but because I'm Canadian, the link would only work for Canadians, so it wouldn't work for Americans. But if you are looking for different trays, you can send me a message and I can let you know if I would recommend that one based on my experience with the tray. But the tray has been so amazing for going solo. All right, so let's say you're not going to the Flower and Garden Festival this year. First, you don't need to worry about a tray, but also how can you bring some of that Flower and Garden Food Festival energy into your regular life? Well, cook some really cool things. Like look at the different menus and be inspired by that and cook a few different things. So one thing that they have at the Canada Pavilion is scallops with a bacon vinaigrette and small potatoes and green beans. So that's the meal that I'm going to create. That's the meal that I'm going to make, although I don't really like bacon. I'm going to use some fresh herbs instead. That is the meal that I'm going to create to be inspired by the Flower and Garden Festival, and the recipe that I use and all that information is going to be on Patreon. Earlier on, I also mentioned a citrus baked brie with orange lemon marmalade, and so I'm going to try that as well. I have some really delicious marmalade. It's President's Choice, by the way, for us Canadians. I'm really excited to try that. So what do you want to try? What are you going to try? I will document all of that on Patreon, so you can follow me on Patreon, see all those pictures. Remember, it is a 7-day free trial, so there you go if you're really interested in seeing all of my cooking. And I would love to know what you are going to do, like what Flower and Garden foods from the festival are you inspired by to try at home. So there you go. You also don't need to follow the Flower and Garden Festival menus to do this activity, to be inspired by the Flower and Garden Festival while you're at home. And again, if you live alone, then it's kind of like a fun activity to like make the food that you're eating a little bit more interesting, because it's always tough to like cook for one. But if you live with a whole bunch of people, or like your partner and your children or whatever, and they're not as into Disney as you, this is a good way to be like, as they're like eating their like scallops that you made inspired by the Canada Pavilion, you're like, ha ha ha, that's an Epcot Disney recipe. So you can do that. However, you don't need to follow those different menu items. I saw a really cool thing on Instagram just the other day in which this woman made this dip. It's like basically ranch dressing. Actually, no, it wasn't ranch dressing. It was a dip that she made with like, Greek yogurt and her own blend of spices. There's definitely ways that you can do it much less in depth than she did, but it looked like a little garden of plants. Like she just kind of put the vegetables in the dip so it looked like it was a garden. That, I don't know, it was really cute. So you can do kind of garden inspired foods as a way to connect with the Flower and Garden Festival. You can also, like here in Canada, I don't think it's just in Ontario, but we have a place called the Bulk Barn, which is like bulk food. And they have this whole section of different things that you can put as tea, like different raw tea, for example. So if you wanted to, you could go to a local bulk store as well and try to put together a different kind of tea blend. I really like florals. I really like the flavor of florals. I like the flavor of lavender, for example. So I could get some black tea and some lavender and make a nice kind of interesting spring blend inspired by the Flower and Garden Festival. Again, those pictures will be on Patreon. So you could do that as well and get something that is more aligned with your flavor palette, like the different flavors that you like. So there you go. That's something you can try at home. All right, two more things, although this episode is getting very long. One, the other thing that the EPCOT festivals are really known for are their different entertainment options related to the festivals. So the Flower and Garden Festival has the Garden Rocks series. It's a concert series that just has different performers that, whatever, like it's a free concert. So they're good performers, but sometimes you have to it's a real niche. Sometimes it's people that anyway, whatever. There's lots of bands that I've gone to see from the Garden Rocks Festival that I've really, really enjoyed. And so you can go and take a look at the different bands that are playing. So it's on the weekends, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, they have more well-known bands. And then during the week, they also have bands, but they are more local bands. They have 3 different times that the different bands play every single night. I believe off the top of my head, it's 5:45, 6:30, and then 7:30, something like that. But definitely check the website. The concerts are about 20 to 30 minutes, and I have always enjoyed them. So a couple bands that are coming up are Taylor Dane, Tell It to My Heart. That's April 25th to 26th. Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to have to listen to some singing. 98 Degrees is playing right after Taylor Dane, 27th, 28th. The Plain White Tees, John Cicada, and then, I'll just skip those two for a second. Don Felder, formerly of the Eagles, I don't know if any of you are interested in that, are playing May 25th and 26th. And then the weekend that I wish I was there for. In fact, I waited to book my tickets to the Flower and Garden Festival for this announcement. And the plane tickets were so expensive. I'm just going to tell you this story. So the plane tickets were so expensive. So coming from Toronto, I can usually get my plane tickets to Orlando for about $300. Now it's more like $350. So those are the prices that I look for. The weekend that I'm about to mention, the plane tickets were $700. I don't know why. It was so much that particular weekend, and I'm still getting Google alerts that are like, hey, the price has gone down. It's now like $648. And like, no, that is so expensive. Plus, for some reason, the hotels at Disney were also expensive, but I didn't spend a lot of time looking at that because the flights already priced me out. Plus, my annual pass would have expired at the end of April, so I couldn't go, but you don't even care about this. I am well aware of that. But on May the 16th and the 17th, the Spinners are playing, and I've seen the Spinners play, and they 100% are my favorite band. And like, you are saying to yourself, I don't know who the Spinners are. And if you look up the Spinners, you'll be like, oh, yeah, I know those songs. It's a whole bunch of like old men. Because the music came out in the 60s. Like, could it be I'm falling in love with you, baby? Like, that's the Spinners, for example. I'll be around. That's also the Spinners. It was such an amazing concert. I can't even tell you. But the reason why I'm not disappointed I'm not going to see them is because I'm going to see them at Niagara Falls in a couple weeks. And I'm going to be the youngest person there. I'm so excited. Anyway, so the Spinners are playing May 16th and 17th, and then the Pointer Sisters, I'm so excited, is playing right after May 18th and 19th. And I've also seen them at EPCOT, and that was a really, really fun concert. And Matt Richardson, who I've interviewed twice on this podcast, I got to see him actually. I met him in person when I was there a couple weeks ago, and he said that he went to the Pointer Sisters concert, and he loved it. He recorded it for his brother, and it was great. And I was like, oh, we probably were dancing just a couple rows away from each other. Anyway, so in my dream world, I would be there to watch all 3 concerts, every one of those nights for May 16th and 19th to see the Spinners and the Pointer Sisters. But you're just going to have to go solos, and you're going to have to report back to me how amazing it was. Okay, so for all of the different concerts, they have the dining package as well. And so what the dining package is, first at EPCOT, it's all by the American Pavilion in that big open air amphitheater. There is a lineup. It's all just kind of open seating. People line up, and then they go and they get their seats. It's all great. But if you are a real big fan of that particular band and you want to ensure that you have a seat, you don't need to wait in a huge line, and are close to the stage, you can also get the dining package. And the dining package is a reservation that you make at one of the restaurants that they identified at EPCOT. There is an additional charge to your meal, but then you get tickets to one of the different concerts where you get to be in the first 3 to 5 rows on the left-hand side of the stage, and you don't need to wait in line. I have done the dining package for the different concerts I've been to, but for the Spinners, for example, if I just waited in a regular line, I could have gotten a seat. It's no problem. The same thing with the Pointer Sisters. I didn't need the dining package to ensure a seat, but I don't regret getting the dining package for a couple reasons. Number one, I really wanted to see the bands, and I didn't want the stress of having to wait in line and worry whether or not I was going to get a seat. Look, I was going to get a seat, no problem, but it just allowed me to skip the line, and that was worth something to me. Number two, it's super, super close to the stage, and that's really cool. I didn't think it would be cool. I thought I'd feel kind of embarrassed being by myself dancing, standing up and dancing at the front of the stage. But you know what? I loved it. It literally was the best time of my life. So it was great. And I know that there is somebody with a recording from that concert, and it's just me looking up at these 75-year-old men singing along. So that's a thing, no problem. But the third reason why I have really enjoyed getting the dining package is that I've got to try restaurants that I wouldn't have tried. I tried the Spice Road table for the first time because of the dining package, and I've also tried the Rose and Crown dining room at the pub in the England Pavilion for the first time because of the dining package. Those aren't really restaurants I would have gravitated towards, but because of the dining package, because of the concert series, I got the dining package, and I loved the food that I had. I loved my experiences at the restaurant, and I have gone back since to those restaurants because of how much I enjoyed that experience, even without the dining plan. So it's worth considering. Now, a band like 98 Degrees, for example, which many millennials will know and be a big fan of, the dining package might be sold out. If I checked, the dining package is probably not sold out for the Pointer Sisters. So know that in the future, when there are concert series, like for the Food and Wine Festival, for example, if there is a band you really want to see, book early on, as early as possible. But if it is a band that maybe not everyone wants to see, then know that you have a little bit more flexibility. The dining package is different prices depending on what restaurants you go to. And so it's hard to compare apples to oranges because some of the restaurants are already prefix menus and some of them are a la carte menu, but you're getting a prefix experience because you're doing the dining plan. The Beer Garden restaurant, for example, at the Germany Pavilion is already a prefix menu, which is about $49 for a lunch or dinner. If you do the dining package at the same restaurant, it's about $66. With the rest of them, it's much harder to kind of figure out, but it's generally $20 to $25 more than you would pay at those restaurants because you are now getting the preferred seating, the shorter line, etc. So it's up to you if that is worth it. For me, it certainly has been, but it might not for you, and that's totally cool as well. If you're going to do it, you should know that there are fewer spots available at these restaurants. So if you go to make a dining reservation at Nine Dragons restaurant in the China Pavilion, you're going to see a ton of different times. But if you are going to book it for the dining package, you might only see 3 or 4 times available to you, and they might not be the best times either. Also, when you book, you might not get a chance to choose which concert time you go to. Like it might say, oh, we only have 5:45 concerts available. Sorry, if you wanted to go at 7 o'clock, that's not your option. So I don't know, there is some choice that is taken away from you. It hasn't been a huge deal for me going on my own. However, it always feels a little inconvenient. There's always a little bit of inconvenience, but nothing that would make me just be like, oh, I'm never going to do this again. Also, I heard somebody else do this at a restaurant, and I have tried it now myself, is that when you go to the restaurant and you're eating your dinner, they're going to give you a special ticket it's a sticker actually that you wear, and that's when you go in your special entrance. And it will say the time that you have indicated or that the system indicated that is your concert time. You could always ask them, just be like, hey, I know I'm supposed to be here for the 5:45 concert. Do you have any spots available for the 6:30 concert? And every time I've asked, also because they haven't been popular bands, they have given me the other time. So just ask. Just ask. That's also the theme of next week's episode. Just ask. The worst they can say is no, and then you still get the time that you want. So just ask. Now, if you're not going to the Garden Rocks Festival this year, if you're not going to the Flower and Garden Festival to listen to any of the music this year, you can bring some of that home as well by having a really fun Disney Spring Garden Rocks inspired playlist. And guess who created one for you? That's right, yours truly. So up on Spotify, I've created a Disney Flower and Garden Rocks playlist. It does not include me singing, but it does include a lot of the Spinners. It does include Pointer Sister. It does include Taylor Dane, and it also includes the flower song from Alice in Wonderland because those songs really work well together. And you could go on a nice walk and listen to all this music, look for your flowers and your different plants that are growing. Oh, gosh, doesn't that sound amazing? All right, one last thing. Actually, there's something right after that. But one last thing before I wrap up this episode is the merchandise. So that is something you can always rely on Disney for, and you can always rely on the different food festivals. on merchandise. So I noticed this year they actually have had like 3 different themes to the merchandise. In past years, I haven't noticed that as much, but you can get merchandise for the Flower and Garden Festival that is themed after Orange Bird, themed after Spike the Bee, and also themed around Alice in Wonderland. And those are really interesting that those are like 3 different mascots to this festival. Normally it's just Orange Bird and Spike the Bee, but it's interesting that they brought in Alice in Wonderland. You can also get some merchandise related to Figment as well, but he isn't as prominent at this festival as he is with Festival of the Arts. So of course you can get a ton of different merchandise for Spike the Bee, Orange Bird, and Alice in Wonderland. I love Alice in Wonderland. I have lots of different things in my dining room related to Alice in Wonderland. I don't collect ears, actually, but now that I'm thinking of it, I have 3 pairs of ears, and 2 of them are Alice in Wonderland. One of them is the Queen of Hearts. The other one is Alice in Wonderland. And I was definitely going to get a set of Alice in Wonderland Flower and Garden Festival ears this time. In fact, I was hanging out with Matt Richardson. Like I said, I interviewed him for the podcast, and Lauren, who I also interviewed for the podcast at EPCOT when I was there a couple weeks ago. And I was like, okay, bye. I need to go buy merchandise. I specifically went to find these Alice in Wonderland ears and some Alice in Wonderland merchandise, and they were totally sold out. They did have some really cute Orange Bird ears. I would have gotten them, but I don't really collect ears. I collect Alice in Wonderland stuff. So anyway, there's a ton of different merchandise. Another kind of cool merchandise thing that you can do is the scavenger hunt. So there's a scavenger hunt. It costs $10. You get a little map, and you are looking for Spike the Bee at different gardens around the World Showcase. I guess not just World Showcase, around EPCOT. And it's always a really fun activity. It forces you to look more closely at the different gardens, which I think is really great. And you also get a prize at the end. Now, if you are a big girl or boy, and you are on the honor system with your scavenger hunt, you can buy the different map and then say, can I redeem my prize now? And they'll give you your prize now. It is fine. Don't worry about it. I do it all the time. I was prepared to say for this particular episode, check what the prize of the scavenger hunt is before you get the map, because if it's not worth the money, then it isn't worth getting. In the past, there have been plates and cups, and that's been really cool. But then for the International Festival of the Holidays, it was a stencil that you put cinnamon on, and so you would have Anna as cinnamon over your latte. And I don't know, while I was buying it, the cast member said they really cheaped out this year. And I just really appreciate that honesty, because I saw that same stencil at the outlet mall when I was there a couple weeks ago, and it was 50 cents. So I certainly did not need to buy that for $10. However, the little souvenir was really cute this year. It was a selection of 4 different watering cans. And the one that I got was the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland. The other options were Spike the Bee and Orange Bird. And I really think it's a very cute souvenir. So I would recommend doing the scavenger hunt. All right, solos. So that was a lot. Now, there's a couple other things I just wanted to mention. Number one, with all the festivals, by and large, not a lot of other things change around the park. So, for example, the fireworks are still the same. Guardians of the Galaxy music choice is still the same. The rides, all the other rides, the water walkthrough for Moana is all the same. So even if you're going to the Flower and Garden Festival, it's not like you're going to have a different song choice, for example, in Guardians of the Galaxy, or it's going to be a completely different experience at Frozen Ever After. So that doesn't really change. There's also PhotoPass photographers all over EPCOT, and that doesn't change, but there are a lot more new magic shots that they have this year that are aligned with the festival. So even if you are shy to take magic shots or use the PhotoPass photographer, if you're going to EPCOT this year, don't be shy. Go up to the PhotoPass photographer, ask for the magic shots, and if in your brain you can be like, well, at least I'm trying something related to the festival. I don't think as someone solo, like on all the times I have done PhotoPass photographer photo shoots, it has never felt weird or awkward, but it is definitely nice to be like, oh, I heard there's a really cool magic shot here. Could we try that? Because then it gives you something to talk about with the PhotoPass photographer. So there's that option as well. I would recommend that you go and check them out. They're pretty cool. In the links below, I'm going to provide a link to the Walt Disney World article on like the food guide for 2025, so you can check that out. Of course, you can look at different reviews and things like that from different websites and vloggers. I've always really enjoyed the food. I had some really good jerk chicken, although like in Toronto, we have a really multicultural food scene, and I've had better jerk chicken, but it was still pretty delicious. Like everything I had was really good. And you can look at the different like food reviews, obviously, but generally just like go choose based on what you like and what your palate enjoys, because I've never really had bad food at the Flower and Garden Festival. Everything has been really unique and interesting. So just go and enjoy. Don't worry too much about the reviews. But I will put the foodie guide from Walt Disney World down below, as well as the link to the Spotify playlist. And please remember to join the Patreon, because that is where I will be posting my own flower and garden journey of the next couple weeks, the different foods, the different walks, the different garden stuff that I'm going to do. So definitely check that out. And until next week, bye. Hey Solos, it's Samantha. I hope you liked this episode as well as all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. You can support this podcast by rating, reviewing, subscribing, and sharing this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and on the YouTube platforms. However, you can also support this podcast and build the Disney Solo Magic community by joining us on Patreon. We have 3 different tiers at different price points, starting at $2 American, and I'm hoping that it'll be a really great place that you can meet other people, both get and share tips and tricks for solo travel to Disney World, and to create larger conversations about how to bring Disney Solo Magic into your everyday life. So please join us. The link to the Patreon is below.